Hello, everybody. Welcome to Slogan's Rock and Metal Extravaganza. We have a very special guest, Warren Weston, and you've heard his vocals in the band Valhalla on our previous show when we played their album, Keeper of the Flame. So we're going to just let Warren talk want to give a little intro on maybe where you grew up, how you got into music, how you formed the band, and things like
Cool,
that.
cool. Well, let's see. I grew up on the farm in Sarles, North Dakota, which is about 1 mile from the Canadian border. Kind of, we're probably like 100 miles south of Winnipeg, and I grew up in like the '70s and the '80s and stuff. And my parents were like huge country fans, so it was hard to listen. I remember when I bought Appetite for Destruction when I was like a seventh grader. I don't know how many times my dad found that in my car and threw it away. That's garbage. And it's like, no. And he was listening to the Oak Ridge Boys and stuff like that all the time. And he thought metal was an abomination. And at the time, it was like, I think when I was a senior or whatever, that was when I started really wanting to play music. I always sang and stuff since I was a little kid. I was good at mimicking people, and we'd go to family get-togethers, and they'd say, "Warren, sing like Marty Robbins, and we'll give you a piece of pie." And I could do that stuff since I was little, And then once I got into the rock and roll, and Guns N' Roses was the first band that I heard that really knocked me out. And then I started listening to old Black Sabbath and Ozzy, and I remember when I heard, what was it, Diary of a Madman, that album, it just like blew me away. And then listening to the Sabbath old stuff, like when I was a junior in high school, that was the first time I was kind of discovering that, like Paranoid and Iron Man and The Wizard and all that stuff. And so that was really, and then Axl Rose was a huge influence on me and stuff. And then I got into Dio and Iron Maiden, and about the time we were like, I started out doing Christian rock music and with the band Millennia, that me and my buddy started, Dean Belgard, and um, he played guitar for me, and then later he became the bass player for Valhalla and for my later band, Phoenix Rising, and he played a lot of bass for me then. And I met Shani Bertowski, who co-wrote the Keeper of the Flame album when I was probably, I suppose, 19, 20. I was newly married, and I had little kids and stuff, and he had little kids, and then we started playing in a cover band and stuff, and it wasn't too long, and those young relationships were shot, and we were paying child support and stuff, and we were just too young. But we got into the music, and then we started opening up for a local band out of Fargo called Sons of Poseidon, and they were more of like a Pantera sounding type band. But we opened up for them all the time. It was like Bemidji, Bismarck, Fargo, Grand Forks, around the tri-state, South Dakota. We kind of did a tri-state area thing with them, and they were really popular in the late '90s, early 2000s, and they were packing the bars pretty good. And they did do just all original music. They didn't do any covers, and so that was kind of how Valhalla got going. And then, when was it? We were writing. I had a little recording studio in the late '90s, and we started recording what would become Keeper of the Flame eventually. Like, we wrote the song Magic Begins and Rosine and all those at that time. And then this guy that Rob Cernick that I told you about, that produced this Keeper of the Flame album, he came up to me and he said, "Oh, I got a couple. I've been writing lyrics," and he said, I like your band, and I'd like to produce an album. And he said, if you'd take a couple of my lyrics and do music with them. So I said, sure. And he ended up taking us to Raptor Studios in Fargo, which was a pretty nice studio owned by a guy named Mike Coates. And we we ended up recording that there, and I think Rob spent quite a bit of money on it. I mean, nowadays you can record, from your bedroom and stuff and make it sound convincing. And even back 25 years ago, it wasn't that way. I mean, you had to have some pretty nice equipment to get some decent sounds, and had to have good rooms where you could mic drums because the replacements were just not as big yet and were just starting. And yeah, we recorded Keeper of the Flame. I think it took a week or something like that. Me and Dean, we drove down there every day, and we were smoking. Dean had grown some marijuana in his backyard there, and we were smoking the leaves off of it. Driving down to Fargo, we'd dry those leaves out, and then we'd break them up and smoke them. And we got pretty good buzz off the leaves. But then we were listening to Dio that whole time, listening to that the Black Sabbath album, Mob Rules, and then the one from '92, Dehumanizer. We listened to that over and over and over again, trying to get inspiration. And I think a little bit like I can hear in the songs Through the Darkness and Fool, there's some Sabbathy element to those,
Yeah.
And but I think it took about a week to record that, and we got a couple songs, on the radio regionally. So like the one She Lies Awake, that got played quite a bit on the big pop station in Grand Forks and Fargo, that XL93. They played that one, the ballad one, quite a bit. And then I think KJ 108 played one of the, I think, Magic Begins.
Okay.
And we got some other radio play. Then when we did Phoenix Rising, we got a lot more radio play with that one. And Phoenix Rising was basically Valhalla, except for Tony and the drummer were different. Tony was the rhythm guitar player, and he's one of the main writers. But otherwise, it was Dean and Shane and me, and so it was basically Valhalla on a little steroids. Back when we were doing Valhalla, we weren't doing a 2-guitar thing. We were just 1 guitar, 1 bass, the drummer and me. And then after that, we always did 2 guitar players. You can record stuff where you got the rhythms going on and stuff, but then when you drop into the lead, it does sound, unless you got a really super busy bass player that can kind of fill that up. And it works okay live, and it's one less person you got to pay when you're trying to, play in clubs and stuff. But a 5-piece always sounds better, where Phoenix Rising was always a 5-piece. Tony's the rhythm guitarist and Shane's the lead guitarist. And I don't know who's I think I'm gonna replace the bass player and the drummer if we ever do something live again. Mostly I'm just focusing on recording these days. It's like I haven't played a live show and I think since January 2001. That was the last time.
Oh, wow.
I went to Fargo, and one of my friends' band was playing, and they had me get up and sing a couple Iron Maiden tunes. And but I've recorded a lot of music these last 3-4 years. I bet you. I was writing with a guy from England too, and we recorded a bunch of songs. Like there's probably 10 of them that are really good songs, and then probably another 15 that are all right. And then me and Tony, we released the first 6 of what's going to be Phoenix Rising, Desolation, and now we're going to release another record another 6, and trying to get Shaney on board for this one, because the last stuff we did, it was just basically me, and then Tony was doing all the music, and he's gotten really skilled where he can do all of it, and it sounds completely believable. But it's like, it's nice to have those other guys, because they end up bringing something more to the table. It's like
more ideas, right?
More ideas. Yep. Yeah. You got somebody that'll maybe have a little different approach on something. And while a guy can, I've done a lot of writing these days with just one other person, and you can do some amazing stuff, but I'm kind of missing that that getting together and brainstorming thing, you know. Pretty much all the writing I've done, we haven't even written in the same room. I just tell them come up with
Yeah.
some music, you know, intro, verse, chorus, bridge, solo, chorus type deal, and they send me it kind of prepackaged, and then I come up with melodies and background vocals and all that stuff. But it would be really sweet to, you know, to sit in the room with the boys, and I haven't done that for years and years now, probably before COVID. So that was kind of when everything kind of changed, and thank God there was, you know, the technology to where we could keep still doing stuff together, because otherwise it would have been
Yeah.
boring.
Yeah.
It would have been really boring. So no, it's then me and Shane have also talked about doing another Valhalla album. That's probably where I'd like to try and get the four original guys. Matthew Aldridge, he was the drum player, and he lives in Chicago now. And
Oh,
then everybody else is Dean. He's Dean Belgard. He's over in by Grand Forks, North Dakota. Shane's in Grand Forks, and um, so it would be, except for Matt, it would be real feasible that we could get in a room and stuff and write stuff. But you know, if it came down to it, we could do the drums from a distance too. You just record stuff with a click track, and then
yeah.
you got a drummer that's got access to the studio and can record his drums. Then you just send it to him and give them the tempo, and they pop it in, and away you go. What a different world, man.
Yeah.
The first album I ever recorded was a Christian rock album called uh, Bethesda, I think, and I recorded that in a studio in Grand Forks, North Dakota. I think it was right before we had this big flood in Grand Forks. It was like 96 or 95, somewhere in there. And then in 97, that building burnt down. But it was one of those old buildings. But that guy had that studio fixed up so cool. And it was on the top level of this big high building. It was like, wow, what a nice place. And we recorded the whole album, and it was pretty, it was a beginner's album. That was my first taste of it though, so it was cool. But there were several bands that I knew that, like, when it did burnt down, they had all their ADATs and stuff right there still, so they lost all their work. That would have sucked. That was back in the day when we recorded on those ADAT machines, and you put the super VHS tapes in them, and they were all linked together. And I think each machine had 4 tracks, so if you'd have to have 3 of the ADAT machines to be able to do 12 tracks. And I think that guy had like 6 of them, so he had quite a bit of tracks. But the recording has gotten so much cooler with the computers now, though. You can cut and splice things. If I do a really good chorus and I like it, I can cut and paste it, you know.
Yeah.
It's like, good, I don't have to sing that again.
Exactly.
And pop her in, you know. It's like, kind of makes you lazy though, because I remember back in the day where we had to, like, a lot of times I'd sing it, like, they'd have me do like 4 takes of it, and it was all on reel to reel tape. And then we'd sit and listen to the 4 takes, and then the producer would have me choose out which one I thought was the strongest one of the 4. And that was the way that guy did it. And then he wrote down everything, you know, and it's like, holy God, that was a whole different animal back then.
Yeah.
And then even more so if you go back into the day when they were just starting to create the effects by, you know, hand, and just figuring out, well, if you plug this in backwards, you'll get this feedback. You know, it was like that was a lot of the effect sounds came about, and it's like we're so blessed today where you can look up whatever kind of effect you want, you know. So
Yeah.
it's a different day, but well, that's about all I know, I guess. It's
Do you ever play in Canada? Being so close to the border, do you ever do shows?
yeah, years ago we did a show up there. It's hard because like you have to get like a work permit or a temporary work permit or whatever.
Crossing the border, yeah.
Yeah, if they're gonna pay, unless you can, unless it's underneath the table. But even that's hard to do when you go across the border like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now it's hard. Like where I live now, it's like there's so few people up here on both sides that a lot of the borders here, they close at like 4 o'clock. So, they close in the afternoon and then they open up right away in the morning. So if you were to go over there for the evening, you bet you're going to have to stay overnight to get back the next day, unless you go way, way out of the way.
Yeah. Wow.
So
Yeah.
there's two border crossings up here, and both of them I think close at 5, and they used to be 24 hours a day. A lot of the Canadians would come over here to the bars and drink and stuff because the booze was cheaper and the cigarettes were cheaper.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Gotta save money, man.
But we don't have no dang health care, so see. I'd rather pay more for my smokes and my drinks and have universal health care.
Yeah.
That's just good smarts in my thinking.
Yeah.
Canada's got it down, man.
Oh yeah. So yeah, I guess what made you go change the name though? Was it just because band members left? That's why you went
Yeah,
to
that was
Rising? You just
that was kind of why we did it, and it was like when we started Phoenix Rising, that was kind of me and Tony's baby, and then it was an afterthought to have Shane and Dean come in, where actually me and Tony were both in treatment when we wrote that. We met each other in treatment and we both found out we were musicians, and we wrote that whole album Revelation in the treatment there. We were both in for like 30-40 days for alcohol treatment and stuff, so we made use of it. And then once we got out and we'd named it Phoenix Rising, then I went and talked to Shane and Dean and got them involved. And Tony's cousin, he was only like 15, 16 back in the day, but he was just a vicious drummer. Now he's really super good. He went to college and everything in the cities for percussion and stuff, and he plays all kinds of stuff though. I mean, he plays all the time, but he plays jazz and country and rock, and you can't just be into one type style around here really and make it. Maybe in bigger areas you could, if you but when you're playing smaller clubs and even like a Fargo club, those type places, they want to hear stuff they know.
You need to do a lot of covers, right?
Yeah, you got to be a little bit of a human jukebox, otherwise they don't want to pay you either, because it's like, and like our original song, like we opened up for Firehouse a couple times, and when we opened up for them, we pretty much just did all our covers, and people went nuts for them. But it wasn't really a bar crowd; it was a concert crowd, so people were paying attention and stuff. And so then they went good, and it just, I don't know. But like if we were the headliner or just playing in a local club, you just have to mix in, Knocking on Heaven's Door, or You Shook Me All Night Long, or we used to do Civil War and do a bunch of Aussie stuff. And I even did we did that song by the Outfield.
Oh wow.
Josie's on a vacation far away. we used to do that one all the time too. We'd rock it up a little bit, but it sounded pretty cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, cool here, but people would dance their asses off for that, though. I tell you, you'd play songs like that, and they'd be out there just doing the white man shuffle out there.
It would frustrate me though. I'd want to play my own stuff though. It's like,
yeah, you do. That's kind of the part of the show that you wait for, is to break out your tunes.
Yeah, it's like.
But the rest of it, you get really sick of playing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
even my own, there's a few of my own tunes that we just did all the time, and I got sick of playing those too. I can only imagine how big bands feel like when
Yeah.
it's about the 7,000th time they've ever played a song, and it's like,
Yeah,
I hate this song.
I think Ian Gillan hates playing "Smoke on the Water" because it's like, how many times do I
Oh,
need to do that? Like,
yep. I've sang that
Yeah.
one a lot. Holy God, I've sang that a lot. I don't know how many, like, when they have open jams and stuff, and they'll be like, Warren, get up here and sing Smoke on the Water. And it's like, oh my God. But
there's so many other songs.
yep.
Uh,
They never asked me to do like Sweet Child of Mine or something like that I actually think is fun, but
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, man.
Well, I think I'll let you guys go, but it was an honor, and I'm
All right.
really thankful that you guys are checking out our music. You'll have to check out the Phoenix Rising stuff too.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, man.
get me you guys' address, message it to me too, and I'll see if I can't find some more physical copies of these CDs here, and
Okay.
I'll try to send you copies of all the ones I've done.
You don't have to do that, man.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, it was exciting to talk to you guys.
All right.
Thanks for coming on, Warren.
You
Yeah.
betcha. You guys have a good day.
You too.
Yep. Bye-bye.
You too, man.
See ya. Yeah. Thanks everybody for watching. So I'd like to thank Warren for joining us, and yeah, it was fun to just talk to him and
Yeah.
hear that little brief history and answer some of the questions I was having. So yeah, we'll be back in 3 hours from now. That's for our box set show. It's gonna be Logan's not gonna be available. It's gonna be me, Ernesto, and John the Music Nut, and Ches also.
Cheers.
So he's gonna be
Yeah.
joining us as well. So thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you in a bit.